Hey up lads and lasses, Damphyre here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange. Today we are looking at the fighters and bombers, and yeah, as I kind of suspected, we're not going to be moving too much around here. Not much really changed with them in terms of damage and that kind of thing. Obviously, got a couple to move that you can notice in D tier, because we found out a use for them. But yeah. Other than that, we have got the Hayrodin to add in, and I've got my preliminary thoughts on where the AT021 is going to end up. So, starting off with S tier, we got the Mistral. That's just not going to move. The thing is an absolute beast of an AA ship, and I'm pretty certain no one can disagree with that. Literally nothing can outperform it in AA. I don't think even T800s outperform in AA, and they're a Corvette, so they're really good. If you've got them, just every fleet you own, put Mistral in. Next up, we have the Vetus B here, which is it's one of the biggest damage dealers in most fleets, and if you're considering Swarm as the main fleet sort of thing, Vetus B is just it's an auto add every single time. We then have the Strix. The Strix again, it's fantastic AA damage. Just don't pick up the strategy to make it attack frigs and destroyers, and you'll be really, really good there. It's just a great ship. Spore, I actually want to move down a little bit. I don't know when it was. Well, I know roughly when it was, but I saw a noticeable damage decrease in the AA aspect of this ship when we were testing it on the pilot server, and I don't know exactly what it was that's caused it, but yeah, there's been something that's caused a damage decrease on the Spore. Unfortunately, I couldn't work out why. So yeah, that's going to be moving down a little bit. We then have the Stingray. The Stingray really shouldn't be that high on A. It's nowhere near as good as it used to be. It's going back down here. So the Spore's just moved back to where I originally put it. So there you go. But yeah, the Spore's just, if you need AA, it's still better than the Sandrake. Actually no, we'll go to the Sandrake in a second. Sandrake, it's going above the Spore. We're going to push the Sandrake up. And it's mostly just due to the fact that the Spore in a flank fleet doesn't do anything. The Sandrake always does something, regardless if it's in the main fleet or the flank fleet. And I think that versatility actually helps it out. Now that I've got Mistral, Sandrakes are dropped from my main fleet and go into my secondary fleet. And that allows my secondary fleet a little bit of AA. And usually it's that secondary fleet that's on the flank. So that can come in on the flank, and then, I got the Sandrake there. So actually, yeah, it is just better than the Spore now, unfortunately. Its damage output's not quite as good as the Spore can get, but reliably, the Sandrake does pretty well. So, yeah. The B1182 Newland? I thought it was a 192. Maybe I got that mistake there. Either way, the Newland, I'm going to move down into the top of B tier. I just find that its damage output's just lackluster at most of the time. Every time I've tried it, and I keep trying it because I want to like it, because I like the idea of the ship with this cannon on it and stuff like that. And yeah, it doesn't work. The system damage is okay on it at best. I found the Vetus A is just doing considerably more. So yeah, it's going down. Vetus A's is going up. We're going to put it at behind the Strix. I think it's going behind the Strix for me. I know a lot of people are going to be like, why? Because it does really good system damage. And, it knocks out propulsion and stuff like that, which unfortunately can be cheesed a little bit, but at the same time, it's really, really strong in pretty much every other situation. where, you know, like you go in, you knock out a carrier's propulsion system and you get the kill on it and it's dead. That's an expensive loss for an enemy. So yeah, the Vita's A's utility and the fact that you can really hamper an enemy's ability to reinforce and come back. It is kind of really good. The problem I have with it is, again, it hits propulsion systems and people use them to take out your miners occasionally, and I really don't like that style of play. That's a personal thing, you know. Some people might love it. And then we are down into B tier with the Bullfrog. The Bullfrog is staying in B tier. It's fantastic on the siege, but it has literally no other use than that. Its system damage is terrible. It's just not very good. D tier Damphyre is staying there. It is awful in pretty much every situation. Like I've tried playing with it recently, and it's the damage is so lackluster on it now. It's so disappointing to run, like, honestly. You know, from the heyday of it being the premier fighter, it was fantastic. It was S tier. It was amazing anti-air. It was amazing anti-ship, and yeah, it got nerfed, I think, a bit too hard with the nerf bat. Balancer Anderson. I'm going to move it up to B tier. It's going to be ahead of the Bullfrog. It's going to be ahead of the Newland. And I'm going to move the SC002 at the same time. They are basically, for all intents and purposes, being run for the exact same reason. They are really good screens. They've got good dodge rate. Some of the jamming like decreases hits on them and that kind of stuff in the jamming system. The jamming itself is relatively and utterly useless, unfortunately, but you know, that's where it is, and that's why I'm going to put it in B tier. If that jamming system was the same as what's coming on the AT021 and it had all that dodge rate and stuff, it would probably be in A tier. Like, but as of this moment, I'm going to put it in B tier. I don't think it's going to be very. I don't think it's very good. The jamming system, but the screening potential on the Balancer Anderson is fantastic. It'll get out ahead of your ships. It can tank some damage because it's got decent dodge rate. So yeah, definitely check out the Balancer Anderson and the SC002. They are very similar. The Balancer Anderson has a slight better tank on it than the SC002, in my opinion. Well, that's just what I've seen from testing anyway. They seem to live a bit longer. The Hayrodin, I kind of want to put it in S, but at the same time, the more I play with it, the more I don't think it's quite that as good as a Vitus B. Like, the damage output just doesn't really get up there. So I'm going to put it in the top of A tier. Hayrodin really needs to be on a ship that can prioritize, well, force it to prioritize super caps. When it's attacking, its damage ramps, basically, the longer it's on that same target. So keeping it on like a specific target, and preferably a large, heavy target, you're more likely to get its strategy and everything to trigger, and that's where it's going to shine. If you do not put it on something that forces its priority, it tries to do anti-air, and it is god-awful at anti-air. So definitely make sure this is on something like a Predator or something, just to force it to attack you know, relatively decent targets for it, and you'll have a lot more damage output, and the damage output in that situation is really strong, and I definitely recommend it. It's also pretty damn good at surviving. Like, I've seen these things being attacked, and yeah, they can take a beating. They've got good dodge rate on them, so definitely worth checking out. We then have the AT021s, and should I just move them into where I think they ought to be? And then I'll talk about each one. And obviously, we haven't really had any time to test any of them. I don't know many people with even the basic energy version. And then at the same time, I don't think I know anybody with the heavy and the jamming. So it's all just going to be based off stats on this one, whereas, you know, normally I try and do things via information from battle reports from other people, battles that I've been in and used ships and that kind of thing, and like actual sort of in-game usage. Like all my testing is from the permanent war my union seems to be in. So the AT-021, I'm going to put them where I think they're going to end up. I think this is better than do you know what? I'm going to move the Bullfrog down to C tier. It just makes more sense though. The AT-021 is going to be at the bottom of B tier. The Heavy, I have a suspicion, might be the top of S tier. And the AT-21 is going to be at the bottom of A tier. So let's start from the B tier. The energy doesn't really have anything going for it, bar the fact it has energy damage, but it's really damn low energy damage. So unfortunately, I think it's just going to struggle to do much of anything. If anything, it's a worse Strix in comparison. I could be wrong though. It could be really good. We need to test it out, like I've mentioned. So yeah, but I think it's going to be a B, or maybe a top B, bottom A at best. The AT-021 jamming. Now, this one's actually really good. So the jamming system on it reduces the enemy's hit rate on the ship that it jams, which is actually fantastic. Reducing hit rate on certain ships is absolutely devastating for them. Imagine like things like this Spear, which has like mostly giant cannons and that kind of thing, really struggles with hit rate anyway, unless it's a really large ship. So now you've got, you know, jamming and you're knocking 10%, and if it's stackable and multiplicative, you could just shut down a ship. It could just never fire and hit anything ever again, which is absolutely, well, it's nuts. So I think it's going to be really good for that. Also to note, the jamming's actually going to be better than, I think, the Balancer Anderson as a screen, due to the fact, well, the jamming works on it and does something useful for you. And at the same time, it's getting bonus to dodge rate and that kind of thing, just for being the jamming variant. So I think you're going to find the jamming's actually going to be really quite good. It'll definitely be worth checking out, and I'll be looking forward to actually testing the jamming and see how strong it really is. The AT-021 Heavy. Now, you guys all heard me when I did a quick look at these and went through all the stats. And yeah, I think this might actually be like a new Levy 9. And as you know, I've ranked that quite highly as well. I think it's basically a Levy in fighter form. It's got great damage output. Okay, it can only hit a couple of times and it's got a huge duration and cooldown, but if you get this on the right ship, you can reduce that cooldown considerably, and all of a sudden you've got a pretty heavy hitting fighter, and yeah, it's gonna be good. I reckon the AT-021 Heavy is gonna be low-key S tier. I just think there's something that the weapons hitting the alpha on it's massive. So yeah, I think the AT-021, it's going to be really good. If someone has any of these ships and have like played around and like you got the max tech points on them, do let me know in the comments down below what you guys are thinking from your use, obviously. And if you haven't got it, maybe just drop down comments down below. Tell me what you think. Where do you think the AT-021 is going to stand against the current rest of the fighters? So there we go. That is it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.